I remember the weight of his hand on my throat, the flicker of those desert lights that make everything look cheaper and meaner than it is, and the taste of metal in the back of my mouth as a voice right by my ear said, "On your knees," like he was choosing a line from a bad movie and thought life would play along. And I looked up through that hot shimmer and said, real calm, "You sure you want to try that with me, son? Because if you press play on me, you better be ready to watch it all the way to the end. And here's the truth. You came for. If you believe a camera isn't the only way to make a record, then tell me where you're watching from, and let me talk to you, like we're sitting at the same kitchen table, because this isn't a headline, this is my life." My name is Naomi Carter, and if you knew me 10 years ago, you probably knew me as Colonel Carter, first black woman to command Fort Hastings out past Abilene Heights, where the sun bakes the sand and the sand scours the soul. Back then when I said move, men moved, when I said hold, they held, and when I said enough, even the loud ones found their volume knob. But out here, out in Red Mesa with its sunburned highway and its lonely gas station signs, rank doesn't buy you much. People don't see what you did, they see what they want to see. And sometimes all they want is for you to stay quiet and hand them your dignity like it's a spare receipt. I do security now, 12 hours on my feet, radio chatter in one ear, dust in the other. I drive home in an old sedan with a prayer card under the visor and a photo taped crooked to the rear view. My boy Jordan, 19, that grin like he knew where every open court was in this town, and none of the trouble he died 3 years ago with his hands pinned on a street where sirens were louder than any mother's voice. They called it an accident after an arrest. The report was neat and the grief was not. I learned the shape of silence. I learned how a door closes in a person's face, and the hinge still says this is policy. That afternoon, the road into Red Mesa looked like a hot ribbon laid across the earth. I had the news on low, heat advisory, bake sale, small town sweetness, and then the line that always lands like a stone in the throat. A young black man died while being restrained by police. They cut to commercial. Like sorrow has sponsors, I turned it off. I didn't need the play-by-play. You know what I mean? The mirror caught Jordan's smile, and for a second I forgot how tired I was. I tapped the tape with one finger and said, "I got you." The way a person says grace. And that's when the lights came up behind me like a stage manager was late and trying to make up for it. Red and blue, spinning hard, siren, short and mean like a cough. I pulled over, smooth window down halfway. Hands where God and men could see them. Hot air poured in with that smell of oil and old sun. I watched 2 officers walk up the shoulder. Big one in front with a jaw like he was chewing a nail. Younger one half a step behind. Eyes wide and learning the big one's tag said, Slater. And my stomach dropped a half inch because I knew that name years back at Fort Hastings. I'd written him up for putting hands on a soldier under my command, made him stand a 4-hour block in full gear, and signed the paper that walked him to the gate. He spent the whole time staring at me with that tight-lipped fire that says, "I hate you for making me look at myself," and now here we were, sun low, asphalt soft breath running hotter than it should. Slater came to my door and dropped his voice low like we were sharing a secret step out of the car, ma'am. And I said, "Is there a reason for the stop, officer?" And he smiled without humor. "We'll get there." He asked for license and registration, and I handed them steady and clean. He glanced and let them fall. Papers scattered on asphalt like leaves in a wind that wasn't blowing. He didn't break eye contact like he was waiting to see if I'd bend. I didn't. "If you needed to prove a point." I said, "Congratulations," he chuckled. "Not proving teaching." Then he tilted his chin toward my face like it was a map he didn't respect and said, "People who look like you tend to forget where they stand." The young one, Lopez, shifted his weight and swallowed a thought, and I filed that away because training puts a second heartbeat in you, the kind that hears the small things and saves them for the right. Second, the cruiser door caught the light and my breath with it, big white letters. Red Mesa Police Department, same department that signed the report that buried my son. The world went quiet right then. Not the bugs and the cars and the wind. Me inside that stillness you only find under fire. The little red eye on Slater's chest was dark, and I said, "You want to turn that on? Or are you planning to tell this by memory?" He clicked it red. LED, blinking like a guilty pulse. He shoved my shoulder, steel met spine, and I tasted copper. "Turn around," he said louder now. The way people talk to cameras instead of people, hands behind your back. "You know what's strange about a camera?" I said, "Eyes on that light. It records the hands that start trouble too. Resisting." "Huh?" He snapped and grabbed, and that's where the body remembers. before the brain votes. My right hand found his wrist, soft as a dance. My shoulder turned enough to take his balance, 2-count downward pressure, clean leverage crack. The sound carried across the shoulder like a dry stick snapping. He dropped to a knee, breath gone thin, mouth a crooked line. Lopez flinched and got halfway out his gun and all the way out his depth. Don't I told the kid? And meant it, like a promise I actually wanted to keep. I let Slater's wrist go and stepped back, palms out, shoulders loose, voice. Even you just recorded your mistake, and the desert held its breath the way it does when shame is listening. Then anger found its feet and tried to run faster than the truth. He hissed something ugly about skin and called it authority. Lopez whispered, "Sir, she hasn't done anything." Slater whipped on him and barked. Shut up loud enough that the mic caught the spit by the time the other cruisers showed up. The narrative had already been written in his eyes. Next thing I knew, my cheek was on hot metal and cuffs were asking my bones what else I had to give through the glare and the shouting and the engines. I found one clear thought: I was not going to let them write Jordan's mother as a monster and call it public safety. Morning took my name and turned it into female suspect. The stations cut the video, so it started with my hands up and ended with Slater's groan. The lower third, loved the words. Veteran snapped security guard attacks officer. Meanwhile, my cell sat somewhere between cold and colder. No lawyer, no charges, just cinderblock buzzing lights and my breath counting wars. And here's where a stranger's courage becomes the hinge that swings the whole door. A reporter named Dana Ruiz got an email with no signature and a file called Bodycam Original. She'd interviewed me back when people saluted me before they knew why she scrubs the clip. Like a surgeon checks a pulse, metadata timestamps audio, and she hears Slater say "on your knees," and the word he never thought would survive outside his mouth. Then the shove she hears. My voice come back low and calm. Still she hears the snap and the gasp, and the part where the world finds out you can't narrate your way out of physics. She posts the unedited video with a line that cut this country down its scar tissue. This is what they didn't air by lunch. Say her rank climbed and stayed by dinner. City Hall had barricades. The Red Mesa chief said there was no clear evidence of racial bias, which is a tidy way to say we saw what we wanted and then blamed the light that night. A door I thought was welded shut opened on a clean room in a glass tower. Captain Matthews, my old CO with a canyon face and a careful voice, sat at one end. A gray suit with a tie tight enough to choke a lie sat at the other. They slid a document across like an apology with an invoice. "We can calm this down," Matthews said. "You were emotional. They were under stress." A short statement spares everyone's dignity. The gray suit added numbers. 2 million tax favored, and a clause that gagged every truth I still owed my son. I turned the paper over and pictured Jordan's elbows on the kitchen table. We don't have any more. I pictured Slater's wrist bone under my palm. I pictured that camera's red blink like a heartbeat. You can't bribe. I took the cheap lighter I carry to remind myself. Some fires are mine to choose and set the corner burning. Paper curled ash fell. "You can buy silence," I said. "You can't buy memory." Matthews called it reckless gray suit, called it unwise. I called it Tuesday. Yeah, that happened. A week later, a black sedan idled outside the Department of Military Affairs, and a man stepped out who made time fold once and open again. Owen Brooks, the kid. I pulled from a blown stairwell in Fallujah 15 years back, right hand, still wearing a pale line where glass kissed him. He handed me a small leather pouch like it was heavier than it looked. "I can't keep this," he said. "I owed you my life. Justice will do." Inside was a silver USB with a cracked blue sticker. RM Task Group, 2019. We sat in a borrowed office with the blinds half closed, and I slid that drive in the room filled with voices I knew as well as my own. Slater first, slick and dry. "He's got the data, but he doesn't know what it means. Put him in for resisting the report. We'll hold a second voice, older and colder, and the mother. She'll bring the whole base down." Slater's laugh, then static. I don't remember standing. I remember the carpet under my boots and the way the lights hummed like a broken promise, and the way my chest found a quiet colder than peace. My son didn't die in confusion. He died in fluorescent light under a plan we took that drive to Dana, and she verified it like it was a heartbeat. Then a federal attorney spoke in careful commas and promised nothing except he'd read fast the night before court. Somebody parked a white van under my hotel window and suggested I cancel my testimony with a bullet. The glass kissed itself into a spider web and the lamp went dark, and I hit the floor, because training is muscle memory with a soul. When the room stopped ringing, I picked up a small piece of brass and slid it into my pocket beside my old Fort Hastings badge, 2 pieces of metal, one for war, one for honor, and a body trying to make sense of both. Court tasted like cold air and nerves cameras everywhere, people hungry for the kind of truth that makes you sick and then clean again. Slater sat with his wrist in a brace and his mouth shaped like a blade when the prosecutor asked if he regretted anything. He said I did my job when he looked at me. He smiled, the slow, mean smile of a man who thinks the script belongs to him. Owen testified first, and he didn't make a speech. He told a stairwell story, fear and smoke and a hand that didn't let go. He said she saved my life once, and today she's trying to save her son's name. The room went still like a kitchen at midnight. Dana walked the court through the body cam like it was a map frame by frame before and after the shove. The slur, my shoulders square. The defense said. The audio was doctored, and the judge's eyebrow said, "Don't test me." Then the tech team rolled in, a surprise that belonged to nobody on our side. A dash cam from a cruiser we didn't know existed, anonymous delivery. Verified timestamps. It caught the approach, the order, the shove, the word that poisons everything. It touches, it played, and when it ended, the silence felt like the moment after the organ stops and everyone hears their own breath. Slater jumped up and yelled, and the judge cut him down to size with one-word order. The prosecutor turned to the jury and didn't perform. You saw what we saw. The verdict came faster than I expected and slower than justice deserved. Not guilty, acquitted. The judge ordered a new investigation into Slater for abuse of power, evidence tampering, conduct unfit for a badge. They cuffed him with the same quickness I'd felt on my skin. He said I was following orders, and listen, I have followed and given orders longer than some folks have been alive, and that sentence is the oldest coward's prayer on earth, you know what I mean. Outside, the air felt wider, not clean, but widened. The steps shook under the weight of people breathing for the first time all day. A man in a tidy suit said he represented the Federal Police Reform Council, and would I bring my voice inside the process. I looked at the cameras and the handmade signs, say her rank justice that doesn't edit, and thought about rooms where process means wait while the truth starves in the hall. I don't want a chair. I said, I want an apology with names on it. He winced, because messy doesn't fit on a brochure. I stepped to the mic, and the applause ran ahead of me, so I raised my hand and let the quiet walk back. Nobody wins a war, I said. Even when the truth clears your name, what's lost doesn't come back. If you're clapping, clap because evidence outran a narrative for once. Clap because a camera told the whole story instead of the part that hurts the least to accept, then go home and ask what would have happened without it. Some people nodded. Some cried. Some looked at their shoes like they found something down there they'd dropped a long time ago. I went down the steps with Owen on one side and Dana on the other, and felt the badge and the bullet tapping a little rhythm in my pocket like a metronome set to still hear. A week later, I met Matthews one more time because some conversations need a period and some need a long, clean comma. You lit a fuse, he said. It was already burning. I said he told me files were still being sealed at the Southwest Security Directorate. Cameras still getting switched off before they switched on. I asked if he slept good at night, and he said sleep is a luxury. I told him, truth is a cost. We parted like people who started as teacher and student and ended as a thing neither wants to name. Dana wrote the story the way it deserved, simple and heavy. Owen went back to Fort Hastings to teach new cadets how to see the person before the order. Red Mesa put out a press release and a new coat of lobby paint and called it progress. And me. I did the thing that will annoy some of you. I left town without a forwarding address. I didn't run. I relocated my silence somewhere. It couldn't be priced or staged. I mailed Dana a small notebook, command log, LC scratched on the cover, and a thumb drive with every file I had. The note said, if something takes me before this is finished, don't let the story end with me. Call it dramatic if you want. I call it insurance because truth has enemies, and they aren't always people. Sometimes they're habits. Sometimes they're marble foyers with decent coffee. Sometimes they're good folks too. Used to the wrong light. And if you want a tidy bow, I can give you this much. I didn't apologize and I won't. I didn't take the money and I won't. And if you see a woman who looks a lot like me in a small border town buying boot polish and a bus ticket, mind your business, unless the truth needs a ride. Because after a lifetime of uniforms and rooms and men who think a badge replaces a soul, I learned that honor isn't the medal, it is the moment you refuse to look away. So tell me in the comments, not just where you're watching from, but where you stand. If that dash cam hadn't surfaced, would you have believed the edit? Have you watched a story get trimmed until the only thing left was the version easiest to swallow? What does justice look like when it stops being a prize for survivors and becomes the ground under all our feet? Argue with me if you need to share what you've seen. Say her rank. If it helps you say your own name louder. Hit subscribe if you want more stories that don't fit inside a headline, because justice doesn't need a stage, it needs witnesses. And I'm asking you to be one.